CNN has learned that Britain is giving Ukraine new long-range strike capability. Sources tell us that the UK has delivered multiple Storm Shadow cruise missiles to Kyiv. It comes as Ukrainian forces prepare for a long-awaited counteroffensive in the south and east. Ukraine's president has said that his country needs a bit more time before launching that counteroffensive, though, as it awaits the delivery of more military aid from the West. When it does happen, the head of Ukraine's nuclear energy agency says Ukrainian forces will have to go around the Zaporizhzhia power plant to avoid damaging the facility. CNN senior international correspondent Sam Kiley had a chance to sit down one-on-one with Ukraine's nuclear chief, and he joins us now live from Kyiv. Sam, there have been numerous threats to the safety of this power station for months now. Artillery, drone strikes, power cuts, and now concerns about the drain of qualified personnel.
Yeah, it is a concern, although it's not one, funnily enough, that the Ukrainians are being too exercised about. That is because even though they say they believe that Enerhada, which is the town next to the nuclear power station, is already being evacuated of Russian officials, and that there are plans to move Russians and other officials, nuclear workers, out of the plant, there are still enough loyal Ukrainians there to run things. But it's very telling indeed when I spoke to him earlier on today, Bianca, about how he was describing plans even among the Russian nuclear workers to get out of Dodge before this offensive starts. This is what he said.
They're probably right now trying to be prepared for quick getting out of there. And also personnel of Rosatom recently made this drill on the very quick packing of everything and just getting into the cars and get out of the plant.
So Bianca, we're seeing, he says these evacuation drills, even among the Russian officials running the nuclear power station. There are 1,500, he says, that he would imagine them staying on, and yet more in the town. If they're not forced out of that town, then they'll be able to step into the nuclear facility to carry on running it. He also said that the Ukrainians, it's very clear from the military perspective, there's no need and no intention to try to recapture the nuclear power station, because in his view they could actually cut down and separate the nuclear power station from Russian forces in the Crimea, and that's what he imagines may happen in this offensive. Bianca?
Sam Kiley, thank you so much for bringing us that new interview.
Now to Ukraine, where Russian forces are facing setbacks in the battle for Bakhmut. Now, Ukrainian officials say they have conducted a successful counterattack near the city, inflicting huge losses on Russian fighters. This, of course, as Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin rages yet again about Russian leaders. He is demanding more ammunition and support. Sam Kiley joins me now from Kyiv. And Sam, you and I have spoken at great length about this. The battle for Bakhmut has been the longest and bloodiest in this war. So do we know how this was achieved and whether Ukraine can replicate it elsewhere, this win in Bakhmut?
Well, it's an extraordinary turn of events. So an area where a distance of about 2 kilometers was cleared. Both the Ukrainians and Mr. Prigozhin both agree. A Russian unit called the 72nd Brigade was abandoned the flank onto the south of Bakhmut. That is his allegation. A Russian military blogger has said that indeed it was Wagner who left the flank. They weren't driven out, they simply concentrated their forces elsewhere, and there was no Russian military there to cover it, and that the Ukrainians exploited that by attacking. Now, the Ukrainians have released images of very heavy fighting there and significant losses among the Russians. They're claiming very high losses indeed among the Russians. I think it's wise not to use their figures in a combat in terms of numbers of enemy that they've killed. But what's interesting here is that Russian military bloggers on the scene, who are very well plugged into the military structures, are pointing to a complete lack of coordination between the formal structures within the Russian armed forces and the Wagner group, which is on the tip of the spear, effectively, in the fight for Bakhmut. And if that is the case, and that is a systemic failure, that means that the Russians are in pretty poor order to face up to what is likely to be a much wider problem for them when the Ukrainians launch their much vaunted spring-summer offensive, which we're anticipating could be sometime this month, Issa.
And just to clarify, Sam, something, you know, Prigozhin, who leads the Wagner Group, of course, he had said a couple of days ago, I think it was a couple of days, I've lost track of time, that his troops would leave by May the 9th if he didn't get supplies, he didn't get ammunition. Any response to this? What are you hearing?
Well, he said that they would leave by May the 9th. Then he said he was promised ammunition. Now he's saying that the ammunition didn't turn up. It's part of an ongoing soap opera, really, in which he's been bitterly critical for many, many months now, indeed, of the formal structures of the Russian armed forces all the way through to the top. He's using expletive-laden attacks on General Gerasimov, the head of the armed forces of Russia, Defense Minister Shoigu, all of these characters he's very happy to lampoon and lambaste in his postings. I think that this really is part potentially of his efforts to position himself in the future perhaps for some kind of political role. It's very, very difficult to work out how he's doing this and quite why he's doing it. But what it does do is show that there are frictions and frailties within the Russian command structures that the Ukrainians are exploiting and are certainly going to exploit further.
Yeah, fractures that we have seen for some time, but clearly being much clearer there in Bakhmut in the last 24 hours. Sam Kiley, appreciate it. Thanks, Sam.